The night skies over dead America were darker than usual, choked by thick clouds that smothered the moonlight. A quiet wind swept over the ruins of once thriving cities, carrying with it echoes of a world long gone. In a small underground outpost buried beneath what used to be Colorado Springs, a handful of survivors huddled around a flickering monitor. The silence was tense, broken only by the faint hum of old generators and the static of failing radios. Captain Rhea Collins, a former communication officer turned reluctant leader, leaned closer to the screen. Her face was tired, smeared with dirt, and lined with the weight of responsibility. It had been nearly 6 years since the outbreak began, 6 years of watching hope fade like a candle burning low. Most believed there were no safe zones left. No future. Just the undead above and the growing fear below. Then, out of nowhere, a signal blinked on the monitor. A soft beeping echoed in the room as a coded message came through: coordinates. A location in the northern stretch of Montana, just past the Deadlands. The text read only 4 words: tomorrow is still possible. Gasps filled the room. No one spoke at first. Rhea stared at the screen, her eyes scanning the message over and over. Could it be real? After all this time, was someone really out there trying to rebuild? Or was this just another trap? Her second-in-command, Miles Brennan, leaned over her shoulder. It could be a trick. We've seen this before. People sending out false hopes to lure survivors in. Rhea's voice was calm but firm. Or it could be the real thing. We can't ignore it. Behind them, a small group of fighters, engineers, and scouts had gathered, about 20 in all. They were the last of Outpost Ember, one of the few human strongholds left after the fall of the major cities. Most of them had lost families, friends, or their homes to the infection. But here they were, holding on by sheer will. Rhea turned to the group. We've all seen what's out there. We've all survived it. But this, she pointed to the blinking message. This might be the only chance we have to find something more than just survival. A life without fear. Without hiding. A murmur rippled through the group. Some hopeful, others skeptical. We should vote, said Jules, the group's medic. We need to be sure this is something we want to risk. No time for votes, said Miles, stepping forward. If we wait, that signal could vanish. If this is a new safe zone, or a resistance, we need to make contact before the chance is gone. Rhea nodded. We leave at first light. The room fell into quiet preparation. Weapons were checked, not the loud kind that drew attention, but silent blades and customized stun tools. The engineers worked to repair one of the armored transports, a retrofitted mining vehicle that ran on stored solar energy. The scouts studied maps and looked over potential paths through the Deadlands. That night, no one really slept. Sleep was a luxury most couldn't afford anymore. Instead, people shared quiet conversations, cleaned their gear, or sat alone, thinking about what they were leaving behind. Rhea sat by a small lantern, flipping through a worn notebook. Inside were notes she'd written over the years, details of survivors they'd met, rumors of distant sanctuaries, and fragments of broadcasts long faded. Hope was a fragile thing. But now, it flickered again. By sunrise, the group was ready. The armored vehicle, nicknamed Iron Dawn, rumbled to life. It wasn't fast, but it was quiet and heavily shielded. Enough to protect them if they moved carefully. The air above ground was cool and still, carrying the eerie quiet that always preceded danger. As the metal doors of the outpost creaked open, the golden morning light spilled into the darkness like a promise. One by one, the survivors climbed into the transport, their expressions unreadable. Fear and courage walk side by side in this world. They didn't know what waited in the northern territories. They didn't know if the message was real, or if the journey would lead them straight into the jaws of death. But they knew one thing for sure. They had nothing left to lose. And maybe, just maybe, everything to gain. Iron Dawn rolled forward into the unknown, and the doors of Outpost Ember closed behind them, possibly for the last time. Out in the vast wilderness of dead America, a spark had been lit. And sometimes, All it takes is one spark to light the way. The road into the Deadlands was broken and silent, overrun by vines, cracked pavement, and nature reclaiming what humanity had abandoned. The Iron Dawn moved slowly, its reinforced treads grinding over the remains of forgotten highways. Inside the armored vehicle, the atmosphere was tense but focused. Every bump, every distant sound, made the survivors inside reach for their weapons. Captain Rhea Collins sat at the front, next to the narrow viewing slit. She kept scanning the horizon with a pair of battered binoculars. So far, no movement. But she knew that calm in the Deadlands didn't mean safety, it meant something was watching. Always. "We've crossed the 100-mile mark," said Eli, the scout operating the tracker. No sign of any human broadcasts, no response from the signal either. "It was probably automated," Rhea replied. "Pre-programmed to loop. If someone sent it, they might not even know we're coming." Miles Brennan, sitting across from her, frowned. "That's what bothers me. If it's a trap, why no bait? No promises, no voice message, nothing. Just coordinates and 4 words." Rhea didn't respond immediately. She was thinking about the simplicity of the message. Maybe they wanted to avoid drawing the wrong kind of attention. A soft thud on the roof made everyone freeze. For a moment, no one breathed. Then came another thud, lighter, like falling debris. Eli climbed a side ladder quietly and peered out a small hatch. "Just branches," he whispered. "We drove under a tree." Everyone exhaled at once. "You'd think after all these years we'd be used to it," muttered Jules, the medic, clutching her small bag of supplies. "But I still can't stand the silence out here." "It's not silence," said Rhea. "It's waiting." By midday, they reached the remains of a collapsed tunnel. The map showed an alternate route through a narrow pass called Talon Ridge. It would add hours, but the tunnel was completely blocked. Rhea didn't like the delay, but they had no choice. As the Iron Dawn crawled along the ridge path, the terrain grew rougher. Jagged rocks, loose soil, and sharp drops made every turn dangerous. They passed abandoned vehicles rusted into skeletons and bones of long-dead animals, at least, they hoped they were animals. Suddenly, a shape darted across the road ahead. Everyone jolted. "Was that?" Jules started. "Too fast for a zombie," Miles said, already reaching for his stun rifle. "Maybe a scavenger," Eli offered. "Or another survivor." Rhea narrowed her eyes. "Slow down. Scan the perimeter." They came to a halt. The surrounding forest was dense, overgrown, and deathly still. A few members climbed out cautiously, weapons ready. Rhea stepped forward, her boots crunching the dry grass. Then she saw it. A small marker carved into a tree, a symbol shaped like an arrowhead, barely visible. "Not natural." "Someone was here," she said. "Recently?" Miles asked. Rhea nodded. "Very." Eli checked his motion detector. "No movement. At least none that's close." As they reboarded the vehicle and continued moving, the questions began to swirl. Who had made that mark? Were they watching? And if so, why didn't they approach? By sunset, they reached a clearing and stopped to make temporary camp. The Iron Dawn provided safety for sleeping, but they needed air and a chance to stretch. A small fireless heater was activated for warmth, and silent sensors were placed in a circle around the camp. Later that night, while most of the group rested, Rhea sat on the roof with Miles. They watched the stars, faint as they were through the haze of the post-apocalyptic sky. "You think it's worth it?" Miles asked quietly. "Chasing a message we don't understand?" Rhea looked at the stars. "I don't know. But I'd rather chase something than sit in the dark waiting for the end." He nodded. "Fair enough." Suddenly, one of the perimeter sensors clicked. A green light turned red. Eli's voice came through the comm. "Captain, movement, northeast quadrant. Closing in fast." Everyone snapped into action. Lights off. Weapons ready. The tension in the camp was immediate. They waited. Then came the footsteps, soft, uncoordinated. Not animals. Not humans. Zombies. But as the first shadow came into view, Rhea's eyes widened. These were not like the usual ones, slow and rotting. These moved slightly faster, and they wore scavenged clothing. One even had gear strapped to its back. "What is this?" Jules whispered, horrified. "They've evolved," someone muttered. "No," Rhea said slowly. "They've been altered." The group backed into Iron Dawn and secured the hatch just as the creatures reached the edge of the clearing. But the zombies didn't attack. They stood there, watching. Waiting. And then, just as silently as they arrived, they turned and walked away. Everyone stared, stunned. "What just happened?" Miles asked. Rhea didn't answer. She was still staring at the trees, where a faint flicker of light blinked once, and then disappeared. A signal? A warning? Or something else entirely? The real battle, she realized, hadn't even begun yet. The next morning, the team moved cautiously. No one had spoken much after the strange encounter the night before. Zombies didn't behave like that, everyone knew it. They attacked without hesitation, driven by hunger or instinct. But these ones had watched. Observed. And then turned away like they had made a decision. Inside the Iron Dawn, the atmosphere was heavy. Rhea kept her eyes on the navigation panel, but her thoughts were spinning. Someone, or something, was controlling the undead. And that blinking light in the woods wasn't a coincidence. It was a message. Or a warning. "New signal," Eli called out suddenly, snapping the group's attention back. Same frequency as before, but it's stronger now. Rhea leaned over his screen. "Where's it coming from?" "Not the same coordinates. This one's about 20 miles north of where we're headed. But it just started broadcasting. We didn't detect it yesterday. Can you play it?" Eli tapped a key. A crackling sound came through the speakers. Then, a voice, distorted and low. "They're watching, but they don't see everything. If you hear this, turn back. The truth is buried beneath the dust of dead America." The message looped, then cut off. Jules looked around at the others. That wasn't automated. That was real. Someone alive recorded it. Miles leaned back in his seat. "So now we have two signals. One silent. One a warning. Feels like someone's playing with us." "No," Rhea said. "It feels like someone's trying to help us, but being hunted while doing it." The team held a vote. Despite the risk, they agreed to investigate the new signal first. It was closer, and if there was a survivor out there, someone with knowledge about these strange zombies, it could change everything. They altered course and headed north. The terrain shifted quickly. The forests gave way to ruined suburbs, half buried in vines and silence. Houses stood crooked and crumbling. Playgrounds were swallowed by weeds. Time had erased most signs of life. Then, as they crossed an overpass, they saw the town ahead, Ashridge. It had been wiped from most maps after the outbreak. Rumors claimed it was one of the first places overrun. No one who entered ever came back. The Iron Dawn rolled slowly into the outskirts. The buildings looked abandoned, but oddly preserved. There were no burned shells or rotting bodies. Just stillness. And faint signs of recent activity. A car with fresh tire tracks. A curtain moving in a shattered window. A door creaking open, then closing. "Someone's here," Rhea whispered. They left the vehicle and fanned out, carefully entering the nearest building, a small library that had been converted into a supply hub. Inside, shelves were stocked. The air was dry. And on the back wall, scrawled in red paint, were words. "They live among us now." "What does that mean?" Eli asked. Before anyone could answer, the sound of a gun cocking echoed from above. "Put your weapons down. All of you." The voice was sharp. Firm. And female. Rhea turned slowly. A woman stood at the top of the staircase, rifle aimed. She wore patched armor, and a tattered badge hung from her vest, USRC, United States Recovery Corps. A unit that was supposed to be long gone. "We're not your enemy," Rhea said calmly. "We heard your signal." The woman narrowed her eyes. "Which one?" "The second one." "The warning," Miles replied. "You're the one who sent it." The woman hesitated, then lowered her rifle slightly. "Name's Commander Voss. And if you heard that signal, then you're already in danger." She led them upstairs into a secured room. Old monitors blinked with grainy surveillance footage of the town. A single solar-powered radio crackled on a desk. Maps and papers were scattered across the floor. Voss explained. "There's a group, humans, using the infected for something. Experiments. Control. They found a way to keep them half-aware. Not fully dead. Not fully alive. Those things you saw? They're test subjects." Jules's face went pale. "You're saying people are creating new types of zombies?" "Yes," Voss said grimly. "And they're close. They've taken over the old biotech labs outside Ashridge. They call themselves the Black Light." Rhea clenched her fists. "Why?" "Power. Control. Or maybe just fear of dying. But whatever their reason, they're building something. And if they succeed, no settlement will be safe. They don't just want to survive the apocalypse, they want to reshape it." Outside, the wind began to pick up. Eli glanced at the screen. "We've got movement. West side. Dozens, no, more." Rhea stood up, calm but firm. "Are they infected?" "No," Voss said, checking her rifle. "Worse. They're Black Light scouts. And they know you're here." The moment the perimeter alarm blared, everything inside the library turned to chaos. "Get to cover!" Commander Voss shouted, yanking the blackout curtain shut. Outside, figures moved through the overgrown streets, fast, organized, and heavily armed. These weren't scavengers or desperate survivors. These were trained operatives in dark tactical gear, their faces masked, their rifles steady. Black Light had arrived. Rhea pulled Eli down behind a row of overturned bookshelves. "How did they find us this fast?" "They didn't," Voss growled, chambering around. "They were already watching." A flashbang went off outside, the blast echoing through the building. Moments later, a voice came through a loudspeaker, chilling and confident. "Commander Voss, we know you're harboring outsiders. Send them out, and we might let you walk away." "Same old threats," she muttered. "They're never true." Miles checked his sidearm. "We're not giving up. We've fought worse." "They're not here for a firefight," Jules added. "They're here to capture." "That's worse." Outside, the Black Light agents spread out. One climbed the clock tower for a vantage point. 2 others circled the side alley. They were coordinated, clinical, too efficient to be regular survivors. Inside, Rhea's mind raced. She turned to Voss. "What do they want from us?" Voss hesitated. "They want your data. Your maps. And you, Rhea. They know you were part of the CDC research wing before the fall. You're valuable." Eli's head snapped toward her. "You were with the CDC?" Rhea didn't deny it. "I worked on viral behavior modeling. Before everything collapsed. Black Light tried to recruit me once. I said no. Looks like they haven't forgotten." Boom. An explosion rocked the lower floor. Smoke flooded the hallway. The front door had been breached. "They're coming in," Jules warned, pressing her back against the wall. Voss tossed her a shotgun. "Then we push back. Defensive sweep. North stairwell. We funnel them in tight." The team moved as one. For a moment, the fear in their eyes turned to focus. The first Black Light agent breached the hallway. Voss fired. He dropped instantly. But the others followed quickly, not even pausing. Rhea fired her sidearm, hitting one in the shoulder. Miles tackled another to the ground and disarmed him. But more kept coming. "They're not killing us," Jules gasped, dodging a stun round. "They're trying to take us." "Exactly," Voss confirmed grimly. "They want us alive." A grenade clattered across the floor, non-lethal. Smoke and static filled the room. It wasn't meant to kill, it was meant to confuse. Through the haze, a voice called out. A calm, robotic voice that chilled Rhea to her core. "We only want what you've stolen. Surrender now, and no further harm will come to you." Rhea gritted her teeth. "They mean me. And the data." "No chance," Miles growled. "We're getting out of here." "I know a way," Voss said, coughing from the smoke. "Old sewer access in the rear archive room. They don't know about it. We'll have one shot." The group moved quickly through the smoke, firing to cover their escape. Behind them, black light agents advanced with precision. Every movement felt designed, tactical perfection. As they reached the back room, Eli pried open the rusted grate covering the sewer tunnel. "We'll have to crawl." "No choice," Voss replied. "I'll seal it behind us." One by one, they dropped down into the darkness below. Rhea was the last. She looked back at the library, once a safe haven, now under siege, and saw a shadowed figure step into view on the second-floor balcony. The man wore no mask. His face was pale, but his eyes gleamed with something unnatural. He looked down at her, not with hatred, but with curiosity. Then he smiled. And waved. Rhea disappeared into the tunnel. The sewers were damp and narrow, but they offered precious cover. Voss led the way, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. "No way they can track us down here," she whispered. "The old tunnels weren't mapped properly before the outbreak." Jules panted behind her. "That man, upstairs. He wasn't just a soldier." Something felt off. "He's one of the hybrids," Voss said. "Half human, half infected. They keep their minds. Their awareness. But they don't feel pain. Don't need food. They're the future Blacklight is building." Everyone went quiet. Eli broke the silence. "Why didn't he attack?" "Because he didn't need to," Rhea said, her voice hollow. "He saw me. Now they know for sure." As they emerged from the tunnel hours later, a storm brewed on the horizon. The rain would wash away their trail, but it wouldn't stop what was coming. Blacklight had seen them. And now, they would never stop hunting. The rain came down in thick, relentless sheets as the group trudged through what remained of the outer suburbs. Abandoned homes leaned like broken teeth, overtaken by ivy and time. Each gust of wind rattled loose siding and whispered through shattered windows like a warning from the dead. Commander Voss led the way with grim determination. "We're about 6 miles from Site Echo. It's a decommissioned military base. Or was, before Blacklight started using it." Miles adjusted his soaked jacket. "How do we know it's not crawling with those freaks?" "We don't," Voss replied. "But the place holds more than old files. It was one of the first research sites. If there's any truth to how this all started, it's buried under that concrete." Jules walked beside Rhea, glancing at her with a mix of awe and unease. "You used to work with people who studied this infection. You think we can stop it?" Rhea's eyes stayed forward. "Maybe not stop it. But understand it. And maybe find a way to fight back. Not with bullets, but something better." Their brief hope was shattered by a sharp whistle. One of their signal flares had gone off prematurely. Everyone hit the ground, weapons raised. But no movement followed. Just silence. And then the faint echo of voices. "Did you hear that?" Eli whispered. Voices. Coming from ahead, Voss confirmed, her grip tightening on her rifle. They moved cautiously until the silhouette of Site Echo emerged through the mist, an angular, low-profile base surrounded by rusted fencing and half-collapsed guard towers. It looked abandoned. But they all knew better. This place gives me chills, Jules muttered. Good, Voss replied. Fear keeps you alert. Inside, the base was eerily quiet. Dust clung to every surface. Old paperwork, photos, and faded warning posters littered the ground. Rhea picked up one, a recruitment flyer for biocontainment specialists. Protect tomorrow. Serve the living. Irony, now. They descended into the command bunker. The air grew colder the deeper they went. Along the corridor walls were old biometric scanners, long dead. But someone had clearly been here since the fall. A set of muddy footprints led deeper inside. Someone's living here, Miles said. Or something, Voss replied. The footprints ended at a sealed door marked R&D Vault. Voss knelt and tapped at the keypad. Still running. Barely. Rhea stepped forward. Let me try. Her fingers danced across the keys. Beep. Error. Beep. Denied. Then. Access granted. Dr. Rhea Maddox. The door creaked open. Inside was a lab frozen in time, glass tanks, specimen jars, and data screens with blinking red alerts. At the far end sat a man. Pale. Bald. Skin marked with lesions and discoloration. His eyes flicked up. You're late, he rasped. Everyone raised their weapons. Who are you? Voss demanded. The man raised his hands slowly. I was one of the last. Research lead. Dr. Marcus Lavin. Black light didn't start the plague. But they made sure it never ended. Rhea stepped forward cautiously. Why are you here? To protect the truth, he whispered. They tried to erase this place. But I stayed. I've seen what the virus can do. Not just to bodies, but to minds. You've seen the hybrids. They're not zombies. They're evolved. Controlled. Miles scoffed. Controlled by who? By black light. And someone even higher. Someone they only call the architect. Voss's expression darkened. So it wasn't an accident. No, Dr. Lavin said. The outbreak was real. But the cure was suppressed. Because fear gave them power. Panic gave them purpose. And now, they're trying to replace the human race with something programmable. Rhea's voice was low. Do you have proof? Lavin pointed to a glass tube. Inside floated a half-formed body. Pale, eyeless, twitching in unnatural sleep. That's proof. That was Patient Zero's genetic descendant. A hybrid created in a lab. Not born. Built. A sudden boom echoed above them. They're here, Jules whispered. They tracked us. Dr. Lavin stood shakily. If you want answers, take this drive. He handed Rhea a data core. Everything I have. All the truth. But you have to get it out of here. The lights flickered. An alarm began to blare. They're breaching the outer wall. Voss shouted. We'll hold them here, Dr. Lavin said, pressing a code into the wall. A hidden escape tunnel opened. You go. The world needs to know what black light has done. Rhea hesitated. Come with us. I'm already dying, he said softly. This is the only way I can still help. The group ran through the tunnel, the lab exploding behind them. As they surfaced in the woods far from the base, breathless and shaking, Rhea looked at the drive in her hand. Inside it was truth. But also danger. Because black light wouldn't stop now. Now, they'd become a threat. They emerged from the forest under the cover of early morning mist. Smoke still curled in the sky behind them, the remains of Site Echo buried beneath rubble. Rhea gripped the data drive tightly, every pulse in her hand a reminder that they were carrying the last known proof of the truth. A truth that black light would kill to bury. Miles scanned the distant skyline with binoculars. Signals coming from the city ruins, northwest, beyond that ridge. At least one active resistance frequency repeating every 30 seconds. Jules frowned. Or it's a trap. Everything's a trap, Voss said. The trick is springing it on your own terms. They moved quickly, sticking to overgrown paths and broken overpasses, weaving through crumbling gas stations and burnt-out neighborhoods. The road ahead was coated in soot, pockmarked with old shell craters and the twisted skeletons of vehicles. By noon, they reached the edge of the ruins. It had once been a vibrant metropolis. Skyscrapers now stood like shattered glass spires against the gray sky. Entire blocks were consumed by decay. Ash coated every surface like snow. Rhea stared at it all, remembering her childhood here. Before the sirens. Before the outbreak. Signals strongest from that high-rise, Miles said, pointing to a narrow tower still miraculously upright near the city's center. Probably a comms relay. Maybe a hideout. Voss nodded. Let's move. Quiet and fast. They entered the city's husk cautiously, stepping over rusted bikes and wilted street signs. The silence was so complete, it made their breathing seem deafening. Then, they heard it. A scream. Close. Too close. Rhea froze, heart pounding. But before anyone could speak, a young girl darted from behind a ruined car, face streaked with dirt and terror. Help, she cried. Please. My brother, he's trapped. But Voss raised her fist, signaling everyone to stop. Too clean, she muttered. Too rehearsed. Then came the shuffle. From both sides. 10, 15, no, 20 figures emerging from the buildings around them. Some slow, the truly dead. But others were fast. Coordinated. Hybrids. They're corralling us. Jules shouted, backing into a broken diner entrance. Take cover. Form a wedge. Voss commanded. Gunfire rang out. Rhea dragged the girl behind a counter while Eli tossed a flare grenade. The street lit up in chaos, zombies screeching, hybrids leaping across walls, bullets slicing the air. But the girl didn't cower. She just watched. Too calm. Rhea noticed it too late. The girl's eyes glitched, flickered. Just for a second. Not human. Rhea grabbed her wrist. Who sent you? The girl's voice dropped an octave. Black light is always watching. The figure twitched, short-circuited, and then exploded into a puff of black ash, disintegrating into nothing but dust. She was synthetic, Rhea breathed. They've made decoys now? Jules yelled. Kids? Not kids, Voss growled. Weapons. They managed to push back the swarm long enough to reach the high-rise, entering through a service door. The building creaked as if alive, but it was intact. They climbed 10 floors, passing rows of empty offices and scattered bones. When they reached the comms center, they found it active. A single terminal blinking. A man stood beside it. Finally, he said, smiling. I was wondering how long it'd take you. He looked clean. Calm. Too much so. Voss stepped forward. Who are you? Name's Ash. Resistance cell leader. At least, what's left of us. Why broadcast? Eli asked. Why risk exposure? Because we need allies, Ash replied. And you brought something they'll kill to retrieve. He looked at Rhea's hand. At the drive. Don't worry, he said. We've got the tech to crack it, distribute the data worldwide. Black Light's propaganda will crumble overnight. Miles crossed his arms. Why should we trust you? Ash chuckled. Because you don't have many choices left. Before they could respond, the building shook violently. A deep, inhuman roar echoed from below. Rhea's face paled. That's not a normal zombie. No, Ash said grimly. That's something they call a binder. Hybrid, enhanced with synthetic tissue. It doesn't infect. It absorbs. The lights flickered again. Then came the sound, wet slithering, dragging metal claws, and a bone-rattling screech. Ash turned to the group. You want to expose black light? You'll have to survive that thing first. As the binder breached the lower floors, tearing through concrete with unnatural speed, the group braced for a battle none of them were prepared for. Hope was fading. But in the dark, they still clung to one another, into the belief that truth was worth fighting for. Even if death came first. The walls trembled with every step the binder took. From somewhere below, the metallic clang of rending steel echoed upward. The team scrambled to barricade the stairwell with desks and filing cabinets while Ash keyed in frantic commands at the comms terminal. It's bypassing every floor, he shouted. It's not searching. It's hunting us. Rhea crouched beside him, eyes wide. Can't you lock it out? Not unless I want to fry the terminal, Ash replied. We lose this signal, we lose the upload. The world never sees the truth. Then we hold the line, Voss growled, her rifle already trained on the hallway. One last stand. Eli and Jules positioned themselves at the door while Miles set up trip mines along the corridor. The air grew thick with heat and something else, an oily, electric stench that made Rhea's stomach churn. Then it arrived. First came the sound, a low, vibrating growl like a diesel engine in pain. Then claws, long, jagged, sparking against the floor. Finally, the binder revealed itself. It was nearly 8 feet tall. A patchwork of human muscle and synthetic plating. Glowing veins pulsed through its semi-translucent flesh, and its face, if it could be called that, was a twisted amalgam of metal and bone. It screeched and charged. The trap detonated, a wave of fire engulfing the hallway, but when the smoke cleared, the creature was still coming, charred but unshaken. Fall back. Voss ordered. Gunfire erupted. Rhea screamed as the binder swatted a desk aside like cardboard. It lunged at Jules, knocking him across the room. Voss threw herself in its path, unloading a full clip into its exposed ribcage. The creature staggered. But then, it adapted. Armor plating slid over its chest, sealing the wounds. It's learning, Eli gasped. It's evolving in real time. Miles threw a sonic charge, the high-pitched blast stunning the binder for only a second. Ash shouted from the terminal, I need 5 more minutes. You've got 2. Voss yelled, grabbing a pipe and smashing it against the creature's back. But that's when it happened. As Rhea reloaded, she saw Ash insert something into the terminal. Not the data drive, something else. A black chip. She moved toward him. What are you doing? Ash didn't turn. Insurance. The screen blinked. Red letters flashed, uplink rerouting. Wait, Rhea said, heart dropping. You're not broadcasting the truth. You're sending it, to black light? Ash finally looked at her, calm as ever. You think you're the first rebels I've baited? They let a few of us grow wild, let the legend spread, so they can harvest the hopeful. You're not a resistance. You're a test. Rhea stepped back, betrayed. You were one of us. No, Ash whispered, voice colder now. I was never one of you. He pressed a final key. But before the data could transfer, Eli tackled him. The two crashed into the side wall, struggling. The binder roared again, smashing through the last barricade. Rhea made a split-second decision. She raised her pistol and shot the terminal. Sparks flew. The screen died. Ash screamed in rage, but the upload was gone. Voss grabbed Jules, pulling him from the wreckage. We need to move. Rooftop. Now. As the binder charged, the group fled up the final stairwell. Rhea kicked open the rooftop door, sunlight hitting her face for the first time in hours. The city stretched out before them, lifeless and broken. They turned. The binder smashed through the doorway, roaring with fury. But this time, they were ready. Eli yanked the emergency fuel line from a rooftop generator. Flammable. Miles struck a flare. They lit the creature up. The binder screamed, engulfed in flame, stumbling backward. Its synthetic skin boiled, metal shrieking. Then, it fell, crashing through the ruined floor and vanishing into fire and smoke. They collapsed in exhaustion. Ash lay unconscious. Not dead. But broken. Jules finally spoke. We were bait. A trap. Maybe, Rhea said softly. But we still have the truth. That drive, Ash never touched it. Miles nodded. We find another relay. One that's real. Uncontrolled. Voss looked out at the dead horizon. Then we keep walking. And so they did. Down the fire escape, into the city of ghosts. Wounded, betrayed, but alive. And still carrying hope. Because the world might be dark. But they weren't done fighting for the light. Ready for part 8, final part 765 words? In the conclusion, the survivors take one last stand to reveal the truth to the world, but face a sacrifice that could change Dead America forever. Part 8, the last light of Dead America. The ruins of the city stretched in every direction, shattered buildings, cracked roads, and silence pierced only by the distant groans of the infected. The group moved through alleys and underground corridors, avoiding patrol drones and stray zombies. Each step was heavier than the last. They had one chance left. Rhea held the original data drive close, tucked under her jacket. The information on it, the experiments, the cover-ups, the betrayal, could still change everything. If they could find a working satellite uplink, they could bypass Blacklight's chokehold on communication. But time was running out. The old broadcast towers on the edge of Sector 9, Voss said as they crouched near a collapsed overpass. It's risky, exposed, and crawling with roamers. Sounds perfect, Eli muttered. Miles checked his gear. We'll need a distraction. Something big enough to draw the horde. Jules looked toward the empty highway. There's a fuel truck stuck 2 blocks down. If I can rig it, we can light up half the sector. Voss looked at him. You sure? No, he said, then smiled faintly. But I'm doing it anyway. No one argued. They split up, Voss, Rhea, and Eli heading toward the tower while Jules and Miles moved to set the charge. Ash, bruised and bound, limped behind them, guarded carefully. They couldn't trust him, but they also couldn't leave him for the dead. The tower loomed above them, twisted, rusted, but intact. Rhea climbed the ladder while Voss and Eli held the perimeter. As she reached the control panel at the top, she pulled out the drive, praying the terminal still worked. It did. Barely. The screen flickered to life, the connection unstable. Rhea inserted the drive and began the upload. 5%. 12%. Below, Eli spotted movement. Infected incoming, fast. Dozens of figures poured from alleyways, drawn by the scent of the living. Voss opened fire, and Eli joined her. They were outnumbered but not backing down. Over the radio, Jules' voice crackled. We're in position. Fuel primed. Light it up. Miles activated the detonator. A massive explosion rocked the city, fire erupting into the sky. The horde turned as one, drawn by the blaze and sound. It worked, most of them veered away from the tower, stampeding toward the firestorm. 47%. 63%. But a few still approached. One of them leapt onto the ladder, an advanced hybrid, its body more machine than flesh. Rhea kicked at it as it climbed. The tower swayed under the weight of battle. Ash, still tied, leaned against the wall below, watching it all unfold. He said nothing. As the hybrid neared the top, Eli scrambled up behind it, grabbing its legs and pulling with all his strength. The creature twisted, screeched, then lost its grip. It fell, taking Eli with it. They both hit the ground hard. Voss screamed his name, but Eli didn't move. 85%. 92%. Almost there, Rhea whispered, tears in her eyes. Below, Voss kept firing until her gun clicked empty. The last of the infected was almost on her when a single shot rang out, from Ash. He'd broken free, but he wasn't running. He aimed again, covering Rhea as she finished the upload. 100%. Upload complete. Transmission broadcasted. The signal went out. To anyone still alive. To bunkers, safe zones, even rogue satellites. The truth had been released. About Black Light. About the virus. About the survivors who refused to disappear. Rhea collapsed beside the terminal, breathing hard. They'd done it. Voss reached her moments later, blood on her hands, pain in her eyes. Eli's gone. Rhea lowered her head. He saved me. He saved all of us. Ash stood nearby, his weapon lowered. You had your broadcast. Now what? Rhea looked at him, quiet for a moment. Now, we rebuild. He nodded slowly. Then I suggest we move. That noise will bring everything. They didn't trust him, not fully. But for now, he walked beside them, not as a traitor, but as someone who had finally seen the consequences of his choices. Jules and Miles regrouped at the rendezvous. Their eyes met Rhea's. It worked. She nodded. They stared out at the smoldering skyline of dead America. The undead were still out there. So were the shadows of Black Light. The world hadn't magically been saved. But something had changed. The truth was now in the hands of the people. The fire of hope had been lit. And even in the darkest place, hope had found a way to shine. The end. Hope in the dark, dead America's battle for a tomorrow without fear. Let me know if you'd like a sequel, prequel, or new title.